Hi, I'm Rachel Rilinger. I'm an accredited Tai Chi Chih instructor or teacher,
If
and
it helps, yeah.
I'm here to talk about how Tai Chi Chih has changed my life.
Okay, we were literally just talking about the fact that I just went to a class a couple days ago you taught, and maybe the first thing to get out of the way, maybe every time when you tell people I'm an accredited teacher of Tai Chi Chih, you don't have to say teacher. You obviously you could say teacher, but it's cooler. They're like, what is that, like Tai Chi? And so do you have a boilerplate elevator speech you give to explain, no, it's not Tai Chi, it's different in X way, or no, it's blah, blah, blah. What do you do?
Yeah. So I say Tai Chi Chih is a moving mindfulness practice. It circulates your chi, your vital force. It is not exercise. It is not a martial arts form.
Okay.
It is a moving meditation, and it has changed my life.
How much before Tai Chi Chih had you looked into or experimented with at all Tai Chi, or did your interest in Tai Chi Chih come out of something completely different?
So I'm really fortunate. My aunt, Terry Jennings, she lives in Hawaii, but I saw her a lot growing up because I grew up in California. So Hawaii is not quite as far as it is now that I live in Kansas City.
Right.
And she has practiced, I think she's been accredited since the 90s, maybe even earlier. I'd have to ask her what year she got accredited. But I grew up watching her, and I would see her do it. Every time I saw her, she would be doing it at some point. And then sometimes she would do it with me. And so growing up, I would do a little bit of Tai Chi Chih here and there with Terry. And then once I became sort of a teenager and had a little more adult-like interests, I asked her to teach me more. And then when I was an adult, I asked her to show me the whole form. And she taught me the whole form on a few different occasions. And then I started practicing daily and noticed the huge benefits. And then I realized I wanted to be a teacher because it changed my life so much. And here we are. Accredited Tai Chi Chih instructor.
I did not know that. I didn't know how old it was. And I didn't know that your story with it goes back so far. When you saw her doing it and were curious about it, was anybody else in the family or any of your friends, did anybody else look at what Aunt Terry was doing and they're like, oh, I'm curious about that too? Or were you the only one in the family that was like, I think that looks kind of cool, or that resonates with me?
Yes. So my cousin, Terry's daughter, my cousin Summer, she was definitely embarrassed about it. I know this is being recorded, so now I'm worried I'm saying something I shouldn't be saying. Just when we were kids, and your mom is doing Tai Chi Chih,
Yes.
and when you're a kid and you're worried, oh, that looks funny. And, this isn't standard practice to see people doing Tai Chi Chih in the park, or I do it anywhere. I do it I definitely do get people looking at me and asking me questions, and I do it in the airport. I do it in lots of public places, and I'm happy for people to ask me what I'm doing and have an interest, and I'm happy to share what I'm doing. But I know there's, people that are a little embarrassed doing things like that in public. I'm not one of those people, but I know my cousin was when she was an adolescent, when already your mom is embarrassing for any reason. It doesn't matter what they're doing.
Correct.
It's your mom.
It's not, I feel like it's not, wasn't the Tai Chi Chih. It was just teenagers are embarrassed by their parents.
Right. So there's that. I know my mom, her sister, would try it here and there, but wasn't, she doesn't practice regularly or anything. So it didn't quite latch on for her. So yeah, it was just so it was, to go back to your question though, the form came to a man named Justin Stone, and it was developed in 1974. So it is a very new form. But the form came to him. So Justin was never like, this is a doctrine, or I'm to be worshiped, that I came, like, it's not that, it came through to him and he just shared it. He's passed now. He's no longer alive. So Justin, the form came, we learned it from Justin, and now it's carried on through accredited teachers.
Yeah.
Is sort of a brief history of Tai Chi Chih. And you can find the Tai Chi Chih Center in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That's where Justin taught and founded the center.
So that's sort of like its home base, its birthplace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I go back to Albuquerque pre-COVID. I would go back and that's where I was accredited. And I would there's a woman there who teaches, her name is Carmen Brocklehurst. Mm-hmm. And she's still my teacher. And she was like Justin. She was always with Justin. So I feel like I'm learning next to the best source, the closest to the original source through her. And she hosts retreats and such in Albuquerque pre-COVID. There hasn't been a retreat since COVID, but I meet with her online now.
You weren't there for kind of the origin story, but is there a story that's told about how Justin Stone received this? How did this happen? Did he tell a story, or do people tell stories that about the things he said?
Maybe. My memory is not my forte. And I feel like I've heard, he went to India, he went to Japan, he did so much, he has lots of books, and he's a composer. But he was doing Qigong practice. Mm-hmm. So he was doing other forms. Qigong is the closest. Qigong and Tai Chi Chih are like almost the same thing in essence. But the way you do them is just different.
So for the total newbie normally when you do it, you demonstrate this, and then someone is either in a class or they're curious, they see you and they ask you what it is and what are you doing, and you kind of explain it, because it's not a mental exercise, or not primarily a mental exercise, or not a mental exercise at all. It's doing something else. For you, in the way you understand it, what are you doing in Tai Chi Chih? What's happening? What are the kinds of movements you do? What do you think? What do you feel is happening in your body with the energies, with all that?
So a lot of Justin Stone's books are about Buddhism. And I also practice Buddhism and Zen practice for his books. But to answer your question, I really want to say Tai Chi Chih does Tai Chi Chih. That's what I'm doing. I'm allowing Tai Chi Chih to do Tai Chi Chih. So it's probably not the answer you want to hear, but it's the truest answer, actually. So when you're first learning Tai Chi Chih, there's a lot of, what hand goes where, and there's a lot of thinking.
Right.
But as you dive deeper into it, it's such a deep spiritual practice that has connected me with everything. And so that's why I say Tai Chi Chih does Tai Chi Chih. Like when I'm not sure about something, or if I'm looking for an answer, I really just need to listen. And then it will be there. The Chi will speak to me when I'm ready.
Does it feel, so the practice, obviously when you start the practice, it's just like, it reminds me of sitting practice in Zazen, how you're supposed to sit. There's different schools about what you sit on, how you're supposed to sit when you do your meditation. There's all those rules.
It's not like that.
Okay. It's not like that.
No, I don't relate to that either. So I don't personally practice that form because of that.
Because it feels so strict and rigorous.
Yeah. Yes. And when Brendan was just at my class recently, I tried to really tell people this is meant to be joyful and comfortable. So I can practice Tai Chi Chih in my bed, laying down if I really wanted to mentally. I can practice it everywhere, but it's a spiritual practice too. It's not just this. So when I meditate, there's so many ways to meditate. And the way I practice is a very open. It's not sit still, go to a silent retreat and sit for 12 hours a day. For me, that's not it. For me, it's cultivating compassion, loving kindness, cultivating connection with myself and the universe and everything, all sentient beings. So when I meditate, I can be doing walking meditation, I can do sitting meditation. There's so many different ways to meditate. And that's what I love about Tai Chi Chih is it's rooting and connecting to that source. So like when you first asked me about what we're talking about today, and I sort of said Tai Chi Chih, and Tai Chi Chih can relate to everything actually, because for me and my spirituality and my spiritual beliefs, when I think of God or the supreme ultimate, whatever that means for other people, for me, it's this source of light and love and joy. And Tai Chi Chih connects me right to the source. It brings me home. And when I connect home, then I can be here.
So I think it's from the traditional Western standpoint, approaching things like this, I feel like in the Western world, bodies are regarded, modern medicine feels very much this way. Bodies are regarded as complex machines. And your brain, of course, your brain and your spirit, your thoughts, they're all part of your body in a way. But obviously, the split between body and mind is very strong in the Western world. And I wonder what you're talking about, things about kind of feeling connected to the universe, connecting with energy. Those things feel like they could be cerebral and nothing to do with the body, but Tai Chi Chih specifically sort of incorporates the body into that. And I think that is different than even from sitting meditation, where yes, you observe sensations in your body, but you're not trying to do anything with your body. You're supposed to see the sensations and have the sensations go. You're not sort of involved in a thing with your body. And that's how you're feeling connected to the universe. It's usually my brain feels connected to the universe because I'm having some whatever state of enlightenment, I'm feeling some heightened sense of awareness of the world, and it feels like it all comes from the brain as opposed to the body. Does Tai Chi Chih do something different than that kind of brain, just cerebral enlightenment or just an emotional enlightenment?
So, yes, and I would challenge that. Well, I say that because for me, I can connect the same way through meditation, but you're right. For some people, they have a very hard time getting out of their brain and getting out of their head and connecting. And for some people, yes, meditation is like, oh, I'm going to get to a place and feel, let my thoughts go and watch my thoughts. And they don't get to that part of connecting to, and that might not be their goal either, right? Yeah. Not everybody's intention for meditation is that. So I think there's also intention in Tai Chi Chih. Definitely. Before I did Tai Chi Chih and I would meditate and stuff, it was more of that, like, oh, I feel nice now, or I feel, but Tai Chi Chih, I'll say this to be more clear, because what you're saying is like, yes, that's exactly right. Tai Chi Chih has helped me get to that place. Because it is a moving meditation. So they're the same thing in essence. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because you keep talking about meditation like it's different.
Well, it's interesting in your experience with meditation. There are meditations, there are walking meditations, but oftentimes when we think about the Westerners look at the stereotype of meditation, it's someone sitting without moving. They're sitting without moving. So clearly that doesn't involve movement. But tell me more about the kinds of meditations you've experienced in your years that aren't quite like that.
Yeah, like that is a kind of meditation.
Right.
That's correct. I do that. I engage in sitting meditation and I love it. And I also do walking meditation and Tai Chi Chih, even dancing meditation or painting meditation, music meditation. There's so many ways. And that's where I think I wish more people were more images of that, because I think that's what usually puts people off. And people are like, oh, I can't meditate. I can't sit still for more than a minute. And they get put off like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't have the time for that. I'm never going to do that. And they're Western, like I got to move and I'm doing this and I can't even do that in my life. And so something that I taught in the class that Brendan was actually just at last Monday, I followed Tai Chi Chih specifically with a mindfulness and meditation class to talk more about that and to delve deeper into it. Because we did essentially meditate when we were practicing Tai Chi Chih, but since it was a first time class for so many people, they likely spent most of the time in their head because it was all new.
Right.
So this is an opportunity to connect. So like Justin Stone would do entire meditation retreats. And part of Tai Chi Chih is, sorry, I'm going off track now too much.
No, not at all.
I want to get back to my original, what I first started saying though, because I'm like losing that thought. Something about, I tend to be able to help people more find their interest or engagement in meditation by reminding them that you can meditate throughout the day. So this was something I taught the class on Monday, is you can have brushing your teeth meditation. And what that means is that while you're brushing your teeth, you're simply being present. Meditation is meditation and mindfulness are about the same thing. You're brushing your teeth, you're noticing, oh, this is how, like, I actually just got a new toothbrush and it's so exciting because it really hugs my teeth. And I notice it and I can feel, oh, this feels tingly here. And when I pay attention and attune, then my brain actually gets to relax into that moment of being present. Or like today, I went for a walk with my dog and I just would stop, my dog would stop to smell something. So I stopped. I took that opportunity instead of being like, no, I got to get my workout in. I got to keep walking. I just stopped and I noticed the sun on my face and I felt the warmth on my skin and I took a breath, which was I take one now just saying it. It was so amazing because I've been having issues with allergies. And at that moment, I could breathe and I didn't sneeze and it didn't feel like pressure in my head. And what a gift that was. So stopping in those little moments, it just took, 10 seconds to stop. And then I kept walking and, it's just about being present throughout my whole day differently is where the mindfulness piece comes in. But that you can turn everyday little moments throughout your day into little mini meditations, like telephone meditation. So if your phone rings, you hear the ring and you take that as an opportunity to take a breath and breathe for just a meditation can be, 1 second long. It doesn't have to be a length, that's all where that image you're talking about where people are thinking, well, I have to sit for 30 minutes on a cushion and not move at all.
Right.
And like you said, there are some sects of Buddhism where there's, I don't have any experience to talk about those. That's just not how I practice. So
again, from the outside, I can imagine someone from the outside looking in, it just sounds like slowing down. It just sounds like slowing down. Is it just slowing down? What's happening between the rush of the normal way you might have taken that walk and the more meditative way you did? Is it just slowing down, or are there other components to the experience that come?
Yes. So 2 things there. Yes, it can be slowing down, but that also doesn't mean you have to slow down your life. It's just doing your life differently. So when you go to the bathroom, instead of, your brain going like, well, okay, I got to go to the supermarket and what do I have to buy and earlier or texting on your phone because it's an opportunity, you don't want to waste a moment of your day. It's saying, okay, for this 1 minute, if you're going to whatever, you're doing in the bathroom, just use that as a chance to stop. So yes, you could slow down. I could stop with my dog while my dog is sniffing whatever, and I could just stop and I could just be thinking, right? And I could be worried about, well, I really got to get home. I got to do this. That's not what I'm talking about. So there's a difference between just taking life a little slower. That's just taking life slower, whatever that means, as opposed to actually being mindful and attuning to, hey, where's this opportunity? I'm waiting for the elevator. I'm waiting in the grocery store. Like, I remember someone, my brother actually used to live in China.
Mhm.
And I think it was his wife. I can't remember who told me this, but they talked about in China, you know, you'd go to the train station, there'd be like a really long line of people waiting at the ticket counter. And he saw someone cut the line completely, go to the front, do whatever, and leave. And nobody was upset about it. And I think it was his wife who was like, well, they must have really been in a hurry. They must have had an emergency. There was this, like, as opposed to being upset, like, oh, great, I just got cut off and I'm standing here still waiting and following the rules. It's like, you know, I don't know what's going on. I can accept what happened and just stay here. Does that kind of make sense at all?
Yes.
It's all about like what lens you choose. And this is actually something in my job. I work at the Lilac Center, and we are a dialectical behavior therapy model. And a big part of that model is mindfulness. One of the skills of which is radical acceptance, which is kind of what I'm alluding to right now. But there's also this piece of what lens. And a lot of times when I'm teaching people this skill of like, you know, I remember one time my toenail has been removed multiple times. It doesn't grow back anymore. It's pretty much gone. And when this first started happening to me, I was in college, I was younger, and I was so sad. I was like, ugh, my beautiful toe. My toe is so ugly now. Now I have no nail, and I had these beautiful toenails. And I was really upset about this aesthetic value I had, right? There was no functionality that changed it. It was purely an aesthetic. This doesn't look it anymore. And I was with my now husband at the time, and he was just in the hospital earlier in a room with somebody getting their skin grafted. And he was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. You know, he was like, yeah, I was just watching someone get their skin grafted. So yeah, I'm not so like understanding the problem, you know, like, how can we put this in like, how can we change the lens? So like now I use that as an example. Like when I go to get an MRI, I actually take moments and I sit there and I have gratitude. And I'm like, wow, I'm so lucky. One, I have insurance to cover this MRI. Two, there's a machine that exists at all to look at my brain this way. You know, and three, it's like I have a little break, you know, I have like a little babysitter. So I can sit here and do Tai Chi Chih and relax, as opposed to like, why do I have to do this? I wish I didn't have a problem at all. I wish I didn't have to be here. It's so loud in here. I have to sit still. My back hurts. Does that make sense? It's not denying. There's a fine line of like, that doesn't mean denying when things suck. And that's the line that some people, it's a hard time to read. Like, oh, I'm just looking at life with a rose colored lens and I'm just ignoring everything bad that happens. That's not it. It's accepting and holding space for things that suck in life. And being aware and present for them. And we can be more fully present for those moments when I'm fully present for all the other moments. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So Tai Chi Chih helps me do that. Full circle.
So that is interesting.
I never told the story. Yeah, I have a totally different story.
what you described kind of at the end there. So I think I've dabbled and delved into many of these things in philosophy, psychology, self-care, mindfulness, meditation, religion. Some of these things are sort of mind games. And I always wonder, so the thing you're talking about, like sitting and thinking, well, how can I be grateful? Like that's just using your imaginative capacity in your normal reason brain to imagine things and see if you feel better if you do that. Or, I mean, it's a brilliant strategy, but it seems sort of cognitive reason as opposed to whatever's happening where you're kind of taking in the sensations of the world, like the toothbrushing thing. That might pay attention to the sensations you have as you brush your teeth, what that's like. And that seems, I don't.
Yes. No, you're right.
What's happening with the brain? I think you don't have to be a neurologist or anything about it, but I mean, for you, how does it feel different to think and worry? And how does it feel to think and imagine gratitude, or think and imagine your way through? I'm not going to be mad about this person cutting in line. I mean, I do these things a lot. I find they're immensely helpful, but they seem like part of the reason brain, like putting the reins on the reason brain and getting the reason brain to go in a new direction, as opposed to, I don't know, some other connection I imagine I'd have with the universe or my body or energy.
Yes, you are very like apt and picking up all these and noticing them and putting them into words, because you're exactly right. I'm saying these things and there is so much of a cerebral component. And what am I doing in my mind? How am I, sort of this, how do I not let my mind take control over my life?
Yeah.
Like you are, there's a saying that's, what is it? Don't believe everything that you think, but you're absolutely right. And that's the story I actually really meant to tell that I got off track. It is so much easier for me to do all the things I just told you about that were mental skills when I connect. Without the connection, those only go so far. So there was a Tai Chi Chih retreat I went to several years ago. And this was actually soon after I moved to Kansas City, which was 6 years ago. And I was really struggling because I'm from California. I love to do things outside. And all of a sudden I moved where there's no mountains and no ocean.
Right.
And I felt very landlocked and trapped. And I was like, having a very hard time, and I went to the Tai Chi Chih retreat and they could see I wasn't grounded. And one of the teachers there, her name is Dora, and she gave me the most amazing advice. She said, you need to go home. And I was like, well, I don't like my home. It's in Kansas City and I don't want to live in Kansas City. And she's like, no, you need to go home. And this concept of home, this place inside of me, that's not even me. And that's where my Buddhist practice comes, is this all like the energy of love in the universe that's in me, that's in Brendan right now, that connects us, right? It's like the concept of, even from a scientific mind-based approach, everything that is on earth right now has always been here. Nothing has changed. Like the water, there's actually the same amount of water right now on earth that there's always been. There's no more water. There's no less water. It's just put in different places right now.
Yeah.
Right. So from like a purely scientific standpoint, the world, everything is connected just from a scientific standpoint. Right. But when you get to that connected feeling, when you come home, you're like, wow, this is even so much bigger than that. Or not. Or it could just all be in my head. But what I feel, in that acknowledgement, what I feel is that connection. So when you first asked me about death,
yeah.
There's a book by Thich Nhat Hanh called No Death, No Fear. And he advises how there is no, when someone dies, right, their physical body dies and it decomposes or however, and then that turns into something else, right? And then there's this life. So there's always this presence of the energy constantly. So from that viewpoint, it's a death of the physical body because the physical body only can do so much. I had a point where I was going with this. Oh, so my son asked me, several years ago, he goes, is a shoe alive?
Good question.
It is a great question. And of course, I asked him, like, well, what do you think? I turned it back on him and let him explore it. But me and my partner, my husband, have different answers to this question. My husband is a very like logical, only reason, only mind kind of person. I mean, he connects to his body too, but not in the same philosophical sense that I do.
Sure.
For him, like life is, it has to have a pulse or blah, blah, whatever, like science defines as life. And for me though, I was like, well, there's atoms in there, right? There's energy in the shoe that's moving around. It's not, so I think it's alive, right? Isn't everything alive in some sense?
I'm trying to. So I completely agree with that sense that, I mean, the thing I like about Buddhism also, I sort of went down the rabbit hole with, there's this Buddhist philosopher, Nagarjuna, and he was just obsessed with basically pointing out how nothing is. The end of it was nothing is. It's that famous thing you get from the Zens, which is first there's mountains and rivers, then there's no mountains and rivers, and then when you're done, there's mountains and rivers. They're just different. It's not denying that things are, but it's sort of going down the rabbit hole of denying the disconnect between all the things, and then coming back to where you are again, you being relative Rachel in this giant world and still acting as Rachel and thinking as Rachel and living as Rachel, but knowing you're connected to all these other things in some way. It's a bit of a, to use a expletive, it's sort of a mind fuck, but it's sort of the way things are. There's a grand everything and there's a relative everything. There's the you, there's the me, there's the table, there's the people, there's your partner talking about life. Well, life has a pulse. And in one way, that is absolutely true, right? Life has a pulse in one sense, in one relative way. All life is determined by, it's got to be living. We just cut it into a box and put this in a box and say this is alive and this is not, because it's a useful box. But I think what you're talking about is, well, those boxes really aren't separated. And you should probably always keep that in mind.
Yeah. Yes. There's actually at the class, I wore a shirt I love, a Tai Chi Chih shirt that says flowing from emptiness. A lot of people see it and they just don't say anything. They're just like, oh, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Because it is that Buddhist concept of like everything and nothing. I actually, my kids, Halloween is not that far away and we love Halloween in our house. I love play and imagination, and this would be a separate conversation when we relate it to death, because I don't like that for Halloween, death is supposed to be scary, right? Like that's the problem in our culture, is that we don't embrace that it did, right? Life, death, birth, everything is. So actually, the more we can talk about it, maybe it wouldn't be so scary. It's still scary. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm terrified. Like as the Buddhist, I'm still sitting here like I'm not at a place where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm totally accepting of that. I'm not. Anyway, the point I'm getting at is we were talking about what to dress up as. And I was like, I could, my son said this year, he doesn't want to be anything for Halloween.
Okay.
And he doesn't want to be anything. And I go, maybe I should be nothing. Like dress in all black or all white. And I was trying to remember which one was like the presence of all colors versus the absence. And I was like, boy, this is a really exciting philosophical costume. Like, how could I dress as nothing? What can I do to display nothing and everything all at once? So I love punny costumes.
I love that I don't want to be anything. I mean, well, then what do you want to be? You don't have to be anything. What do you want to be?
You don't have to. You could be nothing. And what does nothing look like? What is nothing? There was a great Buddhist conversation lecture I went to where they talked about colors, and they talked about how when does green become blue? Yeah. At what point does that transition happen? Right? There's this whole prism of colors. But in the end of it, all of it is still perception, right?
Yes.
It's what we're perceiving as colors. So then you get into the whole debate about like our brain and, don't believe everything you think. So.
Yeah, because I think those things are also those are learned concepts, because there are some cultures that grow up with a more varied understand. They recognize different shades than we do. It's not to say your eyeball is perfectly capable and your brain is perfectly capable of appreciating the difference between those two blues, but you can't do it on a normal basis because you don't have any practice in discerning between those blues. Whereas other cultures, people grow up discerning those colors differently and they see them all the time and they can talk about them. So yeah, it is. Some of the line between blue and green is arbitrary and color and based on your culture and I don't know, your eyeballs and the lighting and your, yeah.
Oh, it's like the paint in my downstairs. I have a downstairs area. It's hard to describe what it is, but I assumed it was a blue paint.
Sure.
And we had to patch a hole. The plumber had to bang a hole to get to a pipe. And so we patched it. So when I went to the store to get more paint, and I had the paint, an empty paint can with the color. And I go to the paint store and I get the little sample size of the paint color. And he takes out the dipstick, and pushes it on. I go, oh, that's not the right color. That's gray. He goes, well, this is exactly what you gave me. I'm like, but it's gray. And he goes, yeah, you put gray in a certain room with certain light and it looks blue. And that is it, Brendan. Like, that's it.
I do like the fact you came back, the Tai Chi Chih, sort of talked about things during your day that you think better. And then you're like, but I'm not able to get there unless I have this time. Is it the time when you are doing it, are you not yourself in the same way that you are when you are driving or talking or other things? Have you unwound something? Are you letting something go? Is something else flowing? Where are you when you do Tai Chi Chih?
So that's a great question. So as the advanced form of Tai Chi Chih is called Seijaku. And what I've been practicing weekly with Carmen is about teaching Seijaku. And Seijaku, you do something called toning. And the idea behind practicing Seijaku and Tai Chi Chih is that when you do this tone, you hear a tone, and that the tone stays with you all day.
Okay.
So if I were practicing and if I were at a level to carry it with me all day, that is the goal. And I've had some days where I carry it for a lot of the day, but most days, no. I'm a mom with 2 kids and they're stuck, I get distracted, I get pulled in, I watch TV, I do a bunch of things that pulls me out of that place of centered groundedness and connection. So to me, like when we think, oh, the Buddha or the monk or this person that's enlightened, it's that person who can actually do that all the time. So I would love to say Seijaku helps me do it all the time. It does. It helps me do it a lot more. And certainly, like, if I'm in a situation where like I'm having a hard time making a decision, I have 2 very good choices, but I have to still decide. I literally go to my dantian, which is your energy. That's where your chi powerhouse is, 2 inches below your navel. There's like a big sphere of energy. When I can connect there, because I've practiced and cultivated this, I can go there and find that home and be like, okay, this is what my body's telling me to do. I've already, I've put on paper all the pros and cons and I've mentalized it as much as I can.
Right.
But in the end of it, they're both good choices and I still have to decide. Right. So the more I can connect to that place, the better life feels. Even when life sucks, even when there's pain and horrible things happening, I try to go back and operate from that place. Does that make sense?
Yes. When you describe these practices to folks who are just kind of curious about it, or maybe dip into it and then sort of recoil when they try it, do you meet people who are a little phobic about whatever that experience is of letting go, whatever that experience is of trying to maintain a center instead of sort of being in that driving, reactive, forward worrying, backward regretting zone, the normal zone that kind of many of us live in, where they recoil and kind of they have a negative experience with this sense of centeredness?
Well, I wouldn't say it's the sense of centeredness. I'd say people are afraid of being alone.
Okay.
And being alone, like the idea of being with that feels scary because it feels like you're alone, when actually it's the opposite of that. You're with everything. But it feels, at first, it feels scary for a lot of people and vulnerable. And I remember the first time it was like, sit with your fear. It's like, oh, no way I'm going to do that, you know? And then I sit with it and then I cry because it's scary. And I sit with it. And it doesn't mean it goes away, but it means I can sit there and accept it. But it's kind of just like all of our emotions. Most of us, we live in an addictive society, and our brains, because our brains are fear-based, which is usually the reason we're constantly seeking and finding comfort outside of ourselves, is because we're afraid. Our cerebellum and our amygdala are very good at their job. They're very good at it because we needed those for so long just to survive. So it takes more work. It's kind of like, there's some statistic, and I'm sure I'm quoting this wrong, that to imprint a bad memory on your brain takes like a second. And to imprint a good memory takes like a whole minute. You know, it's like something much longer. That's how our human brains works. So a lot of times when I'm sitting with myself and when I'm having challenging emotions, and sometimes I remind myself, this is my human brain working right now. And I acknowledge my human brain. I'm like, wow, thank you, brain, for doing your best. You're doing your best to try to protect me. But actually right now, I need to go beyond that and come to a place of really sitting with this. So it is hard to do that. So a lot of people I know, especially with letting go, like there's this one move in Tai Chi Chih, it's called pulling in the energy, where your hands are facing up to the sky and you're going like around a circle in front of you doing this movement. Mm-hmm. And when I did this movement, I received a correction at one of the retreats in Albuquerque. My fingers were curved and they invited me to really open. And I just opened and I was brought to tears. It was like a flood of, oh my gosh, I'm sitting here close, you know, I'm trying to protect myself from so many things. And the second I open, it's like I just got my, you know, my breath, you know, my life state. It's like, wow, oh my gosh, I can breathe. There's a spaciousness now to accept and be with all these life challenges, you know? So that's how Tai Chi Chih, Tai Chi Chih has just made this huge impact on my life, so that I can be here, even though being here is really scary sometimes. So
I love that. So I love the facing the fear. I think a lot of this, so part of my brain is able to think, the people that aren't into this and don't like it and don't like to think about this, it just sounds like a lot of nonsense, because as you've said, you're talking about accepting. For also well-intentioned, moral, virtuous, hardworking people every day refuse to accept things, and they sort of wear it. We all wear it. Sometimes entire societies or religions wear it as a badge of honor. We say, our religion is wonderful because this world is not acceptable to us. It's not good enough. This world needs to be made better. Everything can be made better. And so how do you the idea of acceptance? A lot of people bounce against Buddhism because of nihilism. They say, well, you're saying everything is nothing. Well, that means nothing matters. And the Buddhists say, well, not quite. We're just saying the forms you see things in, there's nothing there if you dig deep enough. That's what we're saying. And then the other side, this acceptance. I think mentally I've struggled with this a while. It doesn't bother me a ton, but I wonder, as responses to people who say all this softening and acceptance and getting in touch with your feelings, well, how's that pay the bills? And how's that fight the good fight, you know, in social justice, and how's that guarantee that we'll continue to grow and prosper if you just accept things the way they are? What does acceptance mean to you? And how do you think about that?
That's a loaded topic and a great topic, and something that is discussed often in the Buddhist communities I'm a part of is, especially with what's going on in our country right now and the past several years, is how compassion in action, and what does Buddhism in action look like?
Yeah.
You know, because it's not that. It's not saying being cruel to other humans is nothing, right? It is absolutely not that. And I don't think we'll have enough time to fully go into the intricacies of that acceptance, because acceptance is something that's just done within yourself, right?
As in a mindset, a state of mind,
And
feeling.
acceptance is helps bring you to a place, helps bring you to that place of connectedness and home, right? And if we're acting out of fear and greed, that's where we run into trouble. And unfortunately, much of the world lives in an addictive, fear-based way. And so we're just feeding that part of our brain that's already too active. So this is like a huge, that's why I was like, this is a whole separate podcast conversation, because it is such a big topic.
But I did want to touch on it because it rattles around in my brain, and my understanding is a bit like yours, where the acceptance is about your own understanding of how things are for you in this moment. And I think also that a lot of the problems we're seeing are not because people are getting in touch with their feelings and trying to understand the very best thing to, they think they're trying to decide the very best thing to do. But I think we can all say, well, how many times are we going to go through this war and violence and anger and selfishness and fear and
your key word is right there. They think.
Right, they do, right.
Right. And don't believe everything you think.
Yeah.
So when we in doing something like Tai Chi Chih or other practice, and I don't say Tai Chi Chih like this is the only thing you can do. It's just what I love and works for me, and what I love to teach and share. But when we come from that place of loving kindness and compassion and connectedness, that's where it would be different. So all the people that are thinking this is the right way, this is the wrong way, it's just like, you talk about abortion, right? Where do people stand on that? And there's a whole spectrum there, right? Of what people think.
Yes.
Right. And I think it would be a very different situation if we were able to approach things, ways of viewing other people's opinions in compassion. How do we coexist when we view and feel differently about things in the world? Right. That's why I'm like, it's a totally different conversation. Because it's like, and that's kind of what dialectical behavior therapy is. In every situation, there's always a dialect all the time, right? I'm hungry right now, and I want to go eat some chocolate cake. And I also want to eat healthy today. And those don't really mesh well, do they? But they're both true for me, right? Both of those are true. That's exactly the challenge in all of so many, and I am overgeneralizing here, right? Just to be brief, but I don't think there can exist a world where human people feel the exact same way about every single thing, right? There's always going to be differences in opinions and differences in how we view the color spectrum, right? But how can we embrace and find ways to cultivate being with each other in those differences? That's where I find if everybody practice, everybody, then what would the world really look like? What would this utopia look like? It's kind of like, I do watch media. I love Lord of the Rings and I love Star Wars because both of them to me are spiritual movies, right? Lord of the Rings, they can't trust the human with the ring. That's exactly it. Humans are not capable in a lot of ways because we're so fed by the addiction and the fear. It takes so much more to operate from a place that's not there.
It sounds like nothing, but I feel like it sounds like a small thing. And I think Tai Chi Chih sounds like a small thing to try and practice that can yield big results, but it remains small in that this mindfulness cultivated in these ways could be in the tiniest moments of every day, but possibly, as you found in your life, could be transformative in your ability to think clearly and feel more and kind of just accept the way things are and then act from there, as opposed to all the hopes we have about how things could be if we'd only just push hard and be different, or all the ways in which you've already failed, and so you need to be sure not to do that again, because what a terrible thing that you've done those things in the past.
Yeah, that's a Jewish thing.
It's a very Jewish,
yeah.
And can't talk to the Catholics. The guilt is a very powerful, and it is in my life, in everyone's life. Guilt is a motivator, and guilt's not terrible. It tells you did something wrong and you probably shouldn't do it again. But man,
but Tai Chi Chih for me is a big thing. It's not a little thing. It's a big part of my life. Because it's changed. It has not, I mean, it's not just accepting things, because I don't accept everything. Like, I still am working on things that are challenging. But it's also like, I sleep better. I can, there's so many my balance is better. I had vertigo issues. Even Justin Stone, who had a stroke, I can't remember what happened. They told him he had like maybe 4 or 5 years left to live. And that's when Seijaku came to him, and he lived for like 15, 20 more years or something. It's amazing the things I've heard that happen to people when they're practicing Tai Chi Chih. It's like, I can't promise anything. I can't say any of that. All I can say is what it's done for me. And it's changed my life, and it's amazing. And I'm so grateful for the practice, and my aunt and Justin Stone and the universe.
If someone is super excited about this, so I'm going to go down the rabbit hole of also looking into dialectical therapy, because I think that's fascinating. Tai Chi Chih, they're interested in Tai Chi Chih. Where do they go? Do they go to the library, look for a book by Justin Stone? Do they go online? Do they hunt around for a class? Maybe some of them live in the area and they could come to your class, but those who can't, what do they? Well, you tell me if there's places you want people to come to you, but then also in a larger world in Tai Chi Chih, if they're curious about it, where are good places for them to go?
Yes, that's a great question. So back in the day, they actually did a Tai Chi Chih video series that Carmen Brocklehurst had on PBS. And Justin Stone always wanted this to be accessible for people. He never wanted finances to become an issue, like, I can't afford to learn this. He always wanted to make them accessible. So you can, first of all, go to the Tai Chi Chih website, which I believe, I'm going to double check right now, is taichichih.org. Tai Chi Chih spelled TAICHICHIH.org. I'm double checking it now. Yes, that's correct. And that's okay. On that website, you can find so many resources. You can also click Find a Teacher. You can find me on that. I'm on there, Rachel Rilinger, RILINGER, to find me. And on there, you can find my classes, or you can go to my Facebook page, which is Healing Harmony. I always get this wrong. Let me double check. It's facebook.com/Healing Harmony LLC is my Facebook page. There, I teach in the Northland, but I also teach private. And then there's some other teachers in the area. I think there's only 3 of us who are actively teaching. There's also, if you go to YouTube, you can actually watch videos of Justin doing Tai Chi Chih right on YouTube. You can also buy, or I think download, Justin Stone released a DVD of all the movements of Tai Chi Chih. So you can, it's very accessible. There's another woman, Amy Tazinski, TYS. Oh boy, this is a tough one to spell. But if you look up Tai Chi Chih on YouTube, her videos are one of the earlier ones anyway. And she breaks down, there's 19 movements in one pose, and she breaks them down and also does the whole form. So there's tons of resources. I definitely recommend finding a teacher, though, in addition to those resources, to help you practice, especially daily if you can, even if it's just one movement. But a teacher can be there to watch you. I know I taught, my aunt taught me, but then she'd go back to Hawaii. So I would use the videos to learn. And I remember the first time I went to a teacher, it was like, wow, there was a lot of improvement. It's kind of like you think you're doing it, and then someone watches you and you goes, no, you're actually doing something totally different, because we have this perception issue, right? So yes, I tried to list those all really quickly because I know we're running out of time. So
no, that was exactly perfect. Is there one hurdle that you've noticed in sort of talking through the years to people about Tai Chi Chih? Is there one thing that seems to, so that people won't take the step of exploring it? Is there a part of it that they think is there a corny part of it, or something that they don't like about out of the movements that people could think about or noodle on, so that they wouldn't stop with that very first roadblock that keeps them from digging into it?
boy, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that because I don't know if anybody's ever told me, oh, I wanted to do
Yeah,
it,
they
but I
probably
didn't
didn't,
do it
right.
because, I guess I think a lot of people sometimes roadblocks are just like, learning something new and thinking, oh, I don't have time in my life to add something else.
Yeah.
I guess would be a roadblock. And so like I was saying earlier briefly, even just doing one movement a day, you get benefits all the time. You don't have to practice for an hour to get the benefits. You can practice for 5 minutes if that's all you have. So it's meant to be accessible. It's meant to fit into your life. Like I remember I did a hike with my aunt, and there's 19 movements in one pose. And we did one movement and then hiked for 5 minutes. And then we did another movement and then we hiked. And then, we kind of spread it out throughout the day.
Yeah.
Throughout the hike and through doing things. So it's meant to be accessible, and it's meant to be a joy. Tai Chi Chih is known as joy through movement. And that's exactly what it's meant to be. It's how do we bring more joy into our lives?